Hey guys, Chad Trofgerben here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a cartoon character talk. Now, I had a similar tutorial that I did a few months ago that you can find in the free tutorials section on how to sync an animated mouth to a voice. Now, this tutorial is basically a step above that. In this one, I'm going to show you the process from beginning to end, recording the voice, actually drawing the mouth poses, putting it all together, and then I'm going to show you how to do some subtle yet effective ways to create emotion in your characters so that I can actually alter the way the voice is presented. And so, with that, let's begin. Okay, the first thing we need is a voice that we can bring into Flash and that we can animate a character to. So, we are going to either need to record a voice ourselves or bring in a voice from another actor that we might hire to do the voices for us. In this tutorial, I am going to actually record the voice and show you that process, just in case if you are actually doing it yourself. So with that, we are going to need some sound software that we can record our voices with. You have a variety of options, and there's different options for both PC and Mac. For Windows, you actually have some free software located right on your computer called Sound Recorder. It's a very basic piece of software, but it can get the job done if you're looking just to quickly record something and move on. However, if you're looking for something a bit more robust, I would recommend Audacity, which I have right here. Audacity is for both Windows and Mac. It's a free download, so if you just go to Google and type in Audacity, I'm sure you'll come up with a free download right away, and you can download it and get right to work. So with that, I will be using Audacity as my example for this tutorial. And if you're using a different software, most of the methods will be the same, but there just might be some different ways of achieving what I'm achieving here. With that, let us continue. Okay, I am now going to go ahead and record a voice that we can use in Flash. So I'm just going to come up here, and you'll see that there's this red record button right here. When you click that, the program will start recording, and whatever you speak into the microphone will be recorded. So here we go. Hi there! How are you doing? Okay, I just spoke my line, and we are good to go. Now, with a program like Audacity, we have some ability to edit this sound file that we just created. First, let's take a look at the dead space that we have before and after the file. You'll notice that we have a bunch of we have the wavelength going on right here. We can see where the sound file is. But before and after, we have some dead space. So let's go ahead and delete that dead space where the flat line is. So all we have to do is go ahead and use our mouse and click, hold, and drag and highlight that first part and then hit delete. And then come over here to the last part, click, hold, and drag and delete. And this will allow it just to be, trimmed, and it'll be easier to work with in Flash. And Flash does have the ability to trim some files and to amplify some files' volume and all that kind of stuff. However, I find it's much easier to edit this stuff before you bring it into Flash. While Flash has the ability to edit files, audio files, it's not nearly as robust as you'll find in a software like Audacity. So, with that said, let's move on and amplify this sound file. It's a little bit quiet, I can kind of tell, and I can go ahead and up the volume so it's a little bit louder and so everyone can hear it. And depending on your microphone quality and all that, that'll depend on how it's recorded and all that. So sometimes you might not have to up the volume. But in this case, I'll do it and I'll just show you how it's done. So the first thing you need to do is you need to take your mouse, click, hold, and drag, and highlight the entire wave file, and then come up to Effect, and then go to Amplify. And again, this might all be different depending on what software you're using. But for Audacity, this is how it will look and this is how it's done. So, in the Amplify window, you can see that we have a dial here that we can adjust however we want. Now, it was set at 8.8 as the default, and that's probably going to be pretty good because this program is pretty good at detecting how loud something should be or what the right volume something should be. And the thing is, you don't want to amplify something too much, or else you'll noticeably have a distortion in the sound. And so you kind of want to be careful when working with some of this stuff. But let's see what 8.8 sounds like. If we come down here to the preview button and click that, hi there! How are you doing? You can preview the sound file. And it sounds pretty good. It sounds like it's at the right volume and everything. And I think that'll be good. So I'm going to come over here and click OK. And as you can see, when I clicked OK, the wave length changed. It's much more vertical now. And that indicates that it's much louder. And that is what we wanted. So, the next part is we are going to save this file. We are going to save the file so then we can import it into Flash. And in order to do this in Audacity, we come up to File, Export as Wave. Now, you can export as MP3. However, from my experience, Flash doesn't really like MP3s too well. And I'm not sure why it is. It might be the way I'm doing it. It might be my computer. I'm not really sure. But I've come to, in my experience, I've come to realize that waves are the best way to work with sounds. So I'm going to go ahead and export as wave. Now, you're going to save it in the folder that you have your movie in, or a folder where you can at least find the sound file. So I'm in my right folder already, and I'm going to go ahead and label this hi.wave, since that's kind of what he says. Now, if you have multiple characters and you're recording sounds from multiple characters, and if you have multiple lines for these characters, you might want to organize them a bit better by making folders for each character, and maybe labeling your wave files a bit more in-depthly so you know what each line is, maybe numbering them, so that might be an easier way to indicate. Again, that's something you'll have to play with yourself, but organizing is always good. You know, it's a good thing to always organize so you know where everything is, and if you need to get out a file and edit it or replace it, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and name this hi and click Save. Now I am going to come back to Flash. Okay, the next step is to open up the example file that I have included with your tutorial. Or if you choose to, you can open up a file of a cartoon character that you have drawn yourself. Basically, the example file is a cartoon character that you can work along with this tutorial with to animate the mouth. Or, as I said, if you have drawn a cartoon character that you want to have talk, your own cartoon character, that will work too. So either way, open up the example file or open up your own file of your own cartoon character. I'm just going to go ahead and open up the example file. And here we go. Here is my cartoon character that we are going to have talk. The first thing I want to do is bring in the wave file that we just created in Audacity. The easiest way to do this is to go to File, Import, Import to Library. And then you go ahead and browse for the file that you just saved and look for the folder it's in. And mine happens to be just right here. So once you find it, you either double click on it or you can click on it and just go to Import to Library. Just like that. And the library is basically an archive of all the stuff that you have for your movie. And if you look over here, you'll see that the library tab is right there, and you can click it, and then you can access your files. Now, if you need more help on the library, I did refer to the library and talk about it a bit in some of my beginner tutorials. So you can check those out if you need a bit more help on what the library is and all that good stuff. So anyway, we have our wave file right here. So what we're going to do now is before we mess with that, we are going to create some mouth poses. Now, by mouth poses, I mean the positions the mouth will be in when the character is talking. So basically, we are going to go through and put in some predefined positions the mouth will be in for whatever voices we will be using it for. So, if you are using the template file that is included with this tutorial, you will notice that my character is a symbol. If you're using your own character, which is perfectly fine, the procedure might be a tiny bit different here depending on how you've drawn the character or if you have put your character into a symbol. So just keep that in mind as I go through these steps here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on my character to go into that symbol. And I've also made the head a symbol. So I'm going to double click on that symbol to go into there. And now you'll see that I have a bunch of layers here. And I do have a mouth layer here, I just have it hidden. So I'll just make that not hidden right now. And you'll see that my face is here and I have all my layers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my mouth positions right here for right now, just so I can kind of visualize this. And then I'm going to make those positions into a symbol that I can then refer back to when I'm actually animating my mouth. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is hide my mouth again. And in order to do that, I'm going to go down to its layer, which is right here, and I'm going to click the eyeball button right by the mouth layer, like that. And that will hide the mouth. The next step is to create a new layer. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer just like this, and name this layer Mouth Poses. Just like that. And finally, I'm going to go ahead and at the first layer in my timeline, the top layer on my timeline, I'm going to click frame 10 and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the timeline to the last layer, hold in shift and click frame 10 on that layer. And then with all of the frame 10s highlighted on the timeline, I'm going to right click on any of them and go to insert frame. This will extend this symbol out to 10 frames, allowing us to put in 10 different mouth poses. So let's go ahead and get started with our poses. The first thing we're going to do is go to frame 1 on our mouth poses layer, and I'm going to come over here and take the zoom in tool and zoom in so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the eyedropper tool and select the nose outline so that my line width is the same as my nose width. Next, I'm going to go ahead and select the pencil tool by clicking that right there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to start drawing my poses. The first pose I'm going to draw is simply a closed mouth pose. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw a line, kind of like this. That'll work. Okay, now that I got that pose down, I'm going to come down here to my mouth poses layer and I'm going to right click on the second frame in the mouth poses layer and go to insert keyframe. A keyframe equals change. So on the second frame, we are going to change the mouth position and put in a new pose. So on the second frame, we're going to go ahead and just click the second frame, and then I'm just going to simply delete this line I just drew, so then we can now make a new pose. So I'm going to go ahead, and this time I'm going to make a pretty wide-mouthed pose. So make sure you're on frame 2 and start drawing your second pose. Like that. And there we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and go down like this and get my mouth colored here by selecting the paint bucket tool and making sure my fills are set. and then I'm just going to fill this in. Whoops, don't want it all the way filled in, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that and go like there. There we go. Sometimes that happens when you're doing the fill. It sometimes fills things that you don't want it to fill. It's just all part of the job. Okay, just going to go back and select my pencil tool again, and then come down here to my timeline and right click and go to insert keyframe on frame 3 of the mouth poses layer. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete this. And now this one, I'm going to make kind of an ooh sound if the character would say ooh during his sentence. So I'm going to go ahead and just go like this. And like that. There we go. Oops, did it again. There we go. And then I'm going to go to frame 4, right click, insert keyframe, and then delete this pose. And now I'm going to do an S sound. And in order to make this sound, he's going to have to clench his teeth together. So taking my pencil tool again, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to draw the S sounding mouth. Like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my line tool and go down like this, and then over like this to create the teeth. And then I'm going to go to my paint bucket tool and then go down to the fill color and select white for the teeth color. Then come in here. Oops, it happened yet again. Oops, well here I'm going to go ahead and lock the other layers so that the fill doesn't go into those layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the lock here, and then I'm going to unlock the mouth poses layer. That way nothing else can be altered when I'm doing this, and that way I won't have that problem that I was having before. There we go. Got the S sound in. Now let's go ahead and make kind of an L sound mouth pose. So we're going to go ahead and go to frame 5, right click, insert a keyframe, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete the mouth and then create an L sound. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the mouth like this, and then I'm going to go ahead and take my line tool and put some teeth in here, kind of like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw a tongue. Like that. And then go ahead and fill in my colors. Okay, I think that covers the basic poses for right now. And we can always add more poses later if we realize that we forgot to add some. So the next step is we are going to take these poses and convert them into a symbol. So in order to do this, we are going to come down to the 5 keyframes that we just created, and we are going to highlight them all by clicking on one, holding in Shift, and then clicking the one on the other side, just like that. And we are going to right click on the keyframes and then go to copy frames. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit F8 and create a new symbol, and I will name it mouth poses, and make sure it is a graphic, and then you don't have to mess with any of the other stuff, and just go ahead and hit OK. And again, if you don't know what symbols are, and if you're kind of confused up to this point as to what I'm doing, please refer to some of my other tutorials in my beginner section, and I cover how to use symbols and what the library is and all that good stuff. Anyway, once you have that down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to clear these 4 keyframes that we just laid down right here. So I'm going to click on the second keyframe, hold in Shift, and then click on the 5th keyframe, and then right click and go to clear keyframe. So now all we have is this symbol right here that we just created. But now we got to paste the frames that we just copied into this symbol. So we're going to double click to go into this symbol, and then we are going to go ahead and right click on the first layer in this timeline and go to paste frames. And there we go. Now when you do this, sometimes you see the mouth is like down here, but that's okay. We are going to go ahead and back out of this symbol, and then we can go ahead and then move this mouth up very easily just by grabbing the symbol and moving it up. So there you go. Okay, this next part is a little bit tricky. If you're new to symbols and you're kind of new to Flash, this might seem a little bit confusing, but just stick with me and we'll get it through it just fine. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new symbol based on the symbol I just created. So we have a mouth poses symbol, and I'm going to click that mouth poses symbol right now, and now I'm going to hit F8 to create a new symbol, and I'm going to name this one mouth number 1 talking or something like that. This is going to be the actual symbol that contains the movement of the mouth that's going to correspond to our voice. So once you have that down, just go ahead and click OK and make sure it's a graphic. Now, we are going to double click to go into this mouth. Now, we are in this new mouth symbol, and now we are going to bring in our voice into this timeline so that we can animate the mouth to it. So I'm going to come over here and make a new layer. And on this new layer, I'm going to click the first keyframe and then go to my properties box. And then I'm going to go to the sound drop-down menu here and select the name drop-down menu and select high.wave. You can also, if you want, just drag the sound from the library onto the timeline if you choose. However, I prefer this way because it seems a bit more organized. It's just kind of what I'm used to. Anyway, once you have the sound there, make sure it is set to stream. This is important because it's a lot easier to work with the sound when it's streaming as opposed to being an event. So please make sure it is set to stream. So once you have that in there, we are going to want to extend the timeline out to match the length of the wave. So let's just go ahead and move our cursor down to frame 70 on this timeline, on the wave layer, and right click and insert a frame. Okay, as you can see, our wavelength is right here, and you can see the wavelength is a little bit longer than that. So let's just kind of go a bit out here. Let's try 115. Right click, insert frame. Okay, our sound ends at about 85, right about there. So we can go ahead then and click frame 85, hold in Shift, go to 115, and click, and then right click on all those frames and remove frames, just like that. And now we're going to go down here to the first layer where our mouth poses layer will be. Right click on frame 84 and insert a frame. So both layers are matching the same length on the timeline. So now if we go back to frame 1 and we hit enter, this is what we get. Hi there! How are you doing? That's obviously not what we want, but fret not, this is where the magic comes in. Go ahead and click on your mouth symbol, just like that, and bring up your properties box. And if you look in your properties box and go down to the looping section, you'll see you have a couple of options here. First is the options drop-down menu, and you have a choice of either having the symbol set to loop, play once, or single frame. Go ahead and select single frame. Now, what we are going to do, if you remember, in this symbol, I'm just going to double click on this symbol to show you, we have created 5 mouth poses. We have a closed mouth pose, we have an open mouth pose, we have an ooh, we have an S sound, and we have a L sound. What you are going to do, I'm going to back out and go on this timeline, is you are going to insert keyframes for each mouth pose that you need corresponding to the voice, and you're going to set this symbol to a single frame on whatever frame the pose corresponds to. So for instance, let's say at frame 15 you need the mouth to be an ooh sound. Well, you would create a keyframe right here, and if you recall, in this symbol the ooh sound is on frame 3. So on this frame, on this keyframe, you would make this a single frame symbol on frame 3, and then you would have the ooh sound, and then you keep listening to the file, and then you keep editing it that way. So basically you need to keep in mind which frames contain which mouth poses, and you can always go and double click on that symbol to go and look just to double check and be sure. And basically at this point it's not very hard, it's just very tedious. So I'm going to go through the process and I will show you exactly what I am talking about here. So let's bring our cursor to frame 1 and let's go ahead and hit enter just for a couple of seconds or so. Hi! Okay, so basically starting right about here, he opens his mouth to say hi. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on this frame and insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to click the symbol, and then I'm going to come over here, and the hi sound, it's an open mouth sound. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the number 2, because in this symbol, if you remember, on frame 2 is this pose. So I'm going to back out here. So that's what I want to correspond here. So single frame on frame 2, that's inside that symbol I want to show. So I'm going to enter 2 and hit enter. And there you go. The mouth now changes to the H or whatever, or open mouth sound. So let's go ahead and keep piecing this together. So I'm going to start at the beginning and play this again until I hear a different sound in the wave that I want to change the pose of the mouth to. Hi! Okay, at about this point, the mouth is open, but it should be kind of going down a bit now because he's going hi, and as he opens his mouth, it's kind of lowering, basically. I remember though, I didn't insert a pose for that in my original template, but you can easily add a pose into the template if this ever comes up. So just go ahead and double click on the template, you go into it, and then go ahead and right click on frame 6 and insert a new keyframe. And now I'm just going to go ahead and delete whatever is on frame 6 right now, and then take my pencil tool and then go ahead and just draw an open mouth pose, but kind of have it a bit more shut, kind of like it's, you know, open but not as open as it was before, kind of like that. There we go. There we go. So, easy enough. Go back to our other symbol like that. So now, on this keyframe, I'm going to right click and insert a keyframe. I'm going to click the symbol, and I'm going to change this frame number to 6 in the properties box in the looping section, like that. So let's go ahead and play it now. Hi there! Okay. Right about here, we have the TH sound. So again, right click, insert a keyframe, click the mouth symbol, come over to the properties box, and change the number of the frame to 5, because that's where I had my TH sound. Like about that. And we'll go ahead and just nudge this up a little. Sometimes when you draw the poses, they're not quite, in line. if you're not using them, if you're not like paying a whole lot of attention. But that's very easy to fix. You can just move this stuff up and down so it matches what you have for your mouth and all that. Okay. Hi there! Right about here, we have another change in the mouth. So I'm just going to go ahead and insert a keyframe, click the symbol, and then change this to frame 6. Because it's kind of it's not a completely open mouth gesture, but it's kind of a half mouth gesture. Hi there! Now we have the open mouth gesture right about here. Insert a keyframe, click the mouth, and make the frame at 2. That's what it was. Hi there! And right about here we have frame 6. Okay. Hi there! How? Okay. At about here, we're going to have the ooh sound come in. So let's right click right about here and insert a keyframe. And then I'm going to go ahead and click the symbol, come over here to my properties looping box, and change this to 3. So let's take a look at how that looks. Hi there! How? Actually, we probably can move this ooh sound up a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and click this frame and then nudge it up a couple. And I'm actually going to go ahead and right click and insert a keyframe here and go ahead and change this keyframe to 2. How are you doing? I think that'll look a little bit better. So let's go ahead. Hi there! How? There we go. That looks better. Okay. How are you? How are you? Okay, how are ya, basically. How are you? So right about here, we're going to go ahead and right click, insert a keyframe, and then go ahead and change this one to 6. Like that. How are you? Yeah. Right about here, I'm going to go ahead and insert a keyframe and change this one to 2. Like that. How are you? Right about here, I'm going to right click, insert a keyframe, and make this one my S or D sound, which is number 4. Like that. How are you doing? And then right about here, I'm going to right click, insert a keyframe, and name this 3 for the ooh sound, for the doing part. How are you doing? And then right about here, insert a keyframe, make that 2. How are you doing? And we have a do in part, so we're going to go ahead and insert the keyframe here and make this number 5 for the end sound. What are you doing? Right about here, I'm going to insert a keyframe and make this 4. How are you doing? There we go. So let's go ahead and go back to frame 1 and preview this and see what it looks like. Hi there! How are you doing? Okay, so we now have this mouth symbol completed. The next step now is to back out step by step into each of these symbols and go ahead and extend the timeline in each of these. And I'll show you what I mean here. This symbol is 84 frames long. It needs to be 84 frames to play the entire wave and to animate the entire mouth. So if we go up to our character head symbol and back out of that, the character head symbol is only 10 frames long. And that's not going to cut it because, of course, as I said, that won't give our voice enough length or time to animate all the way. So what we need to do here in the head symbol is go to the top layer, go to frame 84, hold in Shift, scroll down to the bottom of the to the last layer, and then click that last layer. So all the layers are selected on frame 84. Right click and insert frame. And just to double check, be sure that your mouth is set to, in the looping settings, it's set to play once on frame 1. You can have it to loop since this mouth is only 84 frames, and since we have this set to 84 frames, there is no danger that it will loop. However, just to be safe, I always set it to play once and make sure it's on frame 1. And to double check this, if you really want to, you can go ahead and on the timeline make a new layer and then click the keyframe on frame 1 on that layer, and then go to your properties and go to your sound section, and then go to the drop down menu on name, and then select hi.wave or whatever your voice file name is, and then go ahead and just hit enter to preview it really quick. Hi there! How are you doing? And that works good. So that is good. And you can leave this sound in there or you can delete it, whichever you want. I'll just leave it in there for right now. It won't hurt anything. And now I'm going to go ahead and back out. Another step here. Oops, the first thing I need to do is I need to double click and go back into this head. Remember that mouth I hid before? It's right here. Well, we no longer need it. That was a placeholder mouth, just a standard static mouth that I put in there at the start of my drawing. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that now because I no longer need that, for I have now an animated mouth. Okay, so we're now at the character head. We are going to jump back one more to the body. And again, we need to extend the body to 84 frames so this whole thing can animate. So just going to go ahead, come up to the top layer, click frame 84, hold in shift, go down to the bottom layer, click that, right click, insert frame. And that should be good. And just again, click on your head. Here, I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here to about 200. Go ahead and click on your head and make sure it's set to play once on frame 1. Again, same rule applies. And it looks like it's good. And again, you can always go ahead and make a new layer and insert your sound in there and just try it out and preview it before you move on to make sure it's fine. But I can already tell that it's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and go back out to scene 1. And you're going to have to do the same thing now. You're going to have to go to frame 84, right click, and insert a frame. And then I'm going to make a new layer and then name this layer voice, and then go ahead and click frame 1, go to my properties box, go to sound, and then go to hi.wave. I'm just going to go ahead and preview this just to make sure everything is good to go. Hi there! How are you doing? It looks good. Okay. And that's basically how you make a character talk. There are a couple more things we can go through here though. The first of which is if we look at this and we go ahead and we hit play. Hi there! How are you doing? He talks, but the mouth doesn't quite seem to match the voice, does it? He seems like he should be smiling. Well, what I showed you was how to create a standard mouth. Now let's go ahead and create a happy mouth really quick. It's actually not as hard as you think it would be, and it's actually going to be pretty simple. I'll show you how it's done, and you'll probably think it's cool, I hope. So let's go ahead and go back into our symbol to edit the mouth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click and go into the character symbol, and then I'm going to double click on the head to go into the head symbol. And now what I'm going to do is double click to go into the mouth symbol. Now I'm going to double click one more time to go into the mouth poses symbol. Now keep in mind, when we alter these poses in here, we won't be able to get the regular poses back. So if you want to keep the regular poses, instead of editing the symbol as we are right now, I would recommend that you duplicate the symbol. But just to keep things simple, I'm going to just go ahead and do it this route. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come in here and go and zoom in to our mouth. Our first mouth pose, the closed mouth pose. I'm going to grab my pencil tool and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this first pose and now make a smiled closed mouth instead. About like that. And then I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Okay, and now I'm going to go to frame 2 and I'm going to delete that one and I'm going to create a happy open mouth pose. So it's going to go ahead and go like this. And like that. And then just go ahead and go down like that. Take my paint bucket, fill it in. Go back to my pencil. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this one and make a happy ooh sound. Sort of like that. Then go ahead and fill this in like that. Then I'm going to go ahead, delete this one, and I'm going to go ahead and make a happy S sound. Like that. And then I'm going to take my line tool, go down like that, and go over like that. And then color it in. And then take my selection tool, click this one, and I'm going to delete this. Take my pencil tool and make the happy TH sound. That, and then take my paint bucket tool and color in when I need to color in. Like that. And then finally we have the half closed pose. I'm just going to go ahead and make a half closed happy pose. Just like that. Make my line and then fill it in just like that. So now if we come back out to our main timeline here by just going up here and selecting scene 1 and then we play this animation, let me just zoom out here really quick first like that and then go ahead and hit enter. Hi there! How are you doing? It seems to fit the voice a bit better because he's smiling when he talks. And the voice seems very cheery, and so that also works. Here's something else to keep in mind when you are animating your characters. Eyebrows can play a huge factor, and again, in how the voice is delivered. Just to show you, I'm going to take my selection tool and go into the head here. And I'm going to take my eyebrows. First, I'll unlock my layers here so I can edit them. Now I'm going to take my eyebrows, both of them, and I'm going to go to Modify, Transform, Flip Vertical. And now I'm going to go ahead and move them down a bit. See, the way they're situated now, it almost looks as if he's angry or mad. However, that doesn't really seem to fit the voice when you play this. Hi there! How are you doing? The eyebrows, they just don't really seem to fit. The way I had them before seems to fit a lot better. However, if you're doing a voice where someone is angry, you may want to make the eyebrows lower like that. Or you may want to, of course, adjust the mouth so it's not happy, kind of how it was before when I had it before, and so on. And so there's just many things you can do to alter the expressions of your characters. These are all really subtle things too. There really isn't a whole lot we're doing here. We're just adjusting the eyebrows or we're changing the way the mouth looks slightly. So again, just something to keep in mind. I'm just going to go ahead and undo all that. Anyway, I think that pretty much wraps up this tutorial. I hope you learned something here. Again, syncing mouths to voices and getting your characters to talk really isn't all that hard. It's more tedious than anything. And so, I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions on what you just watched, feel free to email me and ask me. Just make sure you have your receipt code handy. Also, if you have any more tutorials that you would like to see that are not on the site currently, please send me an email. I check all my emails and I'll consider your guys' input. And yeah, I wish you guys luck on your Flash projects, and I'll see you guys next time.